This is London, and what better place to start my tour than right here in Piccadilly, at the heart of this great capital's West End. I lived here for 20 years in the 50s and 60s, but now I return as a tourist and possibly see it through different eyes. What do I look at and where do I go? From here, either I can go west to Knightsbridge or in an easterly direction to Piccadilly Circus. I think I'll choose the latter and take you with me on a sort of clockwise trip of central London. Piccadilly Circus, with the statue of Eros at its centre, the London Pavilion in the background, and of course the brightly coloured neon signs above. Tucked away behind Shaftesbury Avenue, I rediscover Soho, another area which has its share of neon signs. But they don't advertise cameras or cokes. Something more sedate is the Theatre Royal in the Haymarket, the talk of the town in Leicester Square, soon to be turned into yet another theatrical attraction. St Paul's Cathedral is in the distance, and on the south side of the River Thames is County Hall. Big Ben, one of the finest timekeepers in the world. The present Houses of Parliament were built after the old Palace of Westminster had been destroyed by fire in 1834. It cost £3 million, and its Gothic romantic style was the work of Sir Charles Barry, who had the pleasure thereby of constructing the largest building of its kind in the world. Westminster Bridge has been called one of the most handsome bridges in all of Europe. It is almost level throughout and consists of 7 low iron arches supported on granite piers. On the south side of the river near Lambeth Bridge is Lambeth Palace, the London home of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Over Lambeth Bridge and turn right and I'm back at the Houses of Parliament again. Sadly, Barry used Yorkshire limestone to build his masterpiece. It proved to be so fragile that it has been under constant repair ever since. From the west front of Westminster Abbey, we move across Parliament Square to nearby Downing Street, one of the most famous streets in British history. We're looking at number 10, the official London residence of the Prime Minister. We go into Whitehall now. The Ministry of Defence, a building of 1,000 rooms. And on the other side of Whitehall is Horse Guards, which is always in daytime sentinelled by the lifeguards. The northern end of Whitehall opens into Trafalgar Square, where Nelson peers down on us from his Corinthian column. Surely this is the very centre of tourist London. The National Art Gallery stands on the north side of the square, and the Church of St Martin in the Fields at the northeast corner. One looks in vain now for the fields which once surrounded this famous church, where George I once held the position of warden. Through Admiralty Arch, with its massive wrought iron and bronze gates, brings me to Buckingham Palace at the far end of the Mall. There have been many houses on the site of the Queen's London residence, and in James I's reign there stood a mulberry orchard, An unsuccessful silkworm farm, in fact. In front of the palace stands the Queen Victoria Memorial, which was unveiled by her grandson George V in 1911. It is topped by a winged figure of Victory, which is beautifully and richly gilded. The central figure of the Queen is carved from one solid block of white marble. From the ever-swirling traffic of Hyde Park Corner, I turned away to something much more peaceful, the Serpentine, an artificial stretch of water separating Hyde Park from Kensington Gardens. The Royal Albert Hall, which was completed in 1871, was erected in memory of the Prince Consort. Opposite the hall, just within Kensington Gardens, is the Albert Memorial, a vast monument designed by George Gilbert Scott. It took almost 10 years to build. The shrine is a metal construction, lavishly ornamented with mosaics, gilt and enamels, and embellished with extravagant sculptures of the foremost artists of the Victorian period. Next door to the Albert Hall is the Royal College of Organists. The hall is in the form of a huge oval arena, surrounded by tier upon tier of boxes and galleries. It comfortably seats 8,000 people. Less than half a mile away, I passed the Natural History Museum.
Loaded implication on not firing blanks. Our friend may well blame the government for some of the things he dislikes.
Speaker's Corner at Marble Arch on a Sunday is another must for the visitor.
But when he accuses me of being responsible for the permissive society, he's really giving me far too much credit. I mean, even if I were...
Subjects of all sorts get aired, and tempers frequently rise in the heat of the arguments, which come from all quarters of the crowd. From the familiar frontage of Selfridge's and of Oxford Street, we turn into Mayfair, which is situated behind Park Lane, with its shops which have gained the royal appointment, and its famous hotels where only the wealthy can afford to stay. My tour of London finishes where it began. Piccadilly becomes an art gallery at the weekend, and here one can purchase work by many different artists who display their varying talents along the railings of this famous London thoroughfare. I do hope you enjoyed my tour of London as much as I enjoyed taking you with me.